Welcome back, Kerbal. So today I'm going to skip into some of the more interesting bits of a mission that I've talked about a little bit already. Something we tried to do previously. Now, I said that I thought that I could land the vehicle with more legs and with less fuel. Well, I took less fuel and I put more legs, and you'll notice I'm landed on the engine valve. Turns out that even with more legs, this thing still cannot land even on Minmus. I was going about 2 meters per second when it happened. I guess this thing is just too heavy, and I don't know. What saved me was the RCS. With the RCS, I was able to stay upright long enough to be stable. So anyways, we have Bob in the science bay doing science as normal, and we've got Bill and Jebediah. We're going to go ahead and have Bill take a quick, may as well take a surface sample. Did we end up on the poles again? How did that happen? I hadn't even realized that. We're going to try very hard not to knock over any of the solar panels. I thought I was landing in the Midlands. Oh well. Whatever. This is about how soft we were landing. For Kerbal, it seems perfectly fine, but apparently not for a spacecraft this heavy. So what we're doing is just digging up some more. We just wanted to do that for the contract. I don't have any wise words to say, but we plenty of lag, so we're good. And we may as well take it down, because we already have a lot of flags on the poles. So anyways, we have now completed a couple of missions. Well, that's interesting. Let me not do delicate flights. Oh, that would be so bad to do that so close to a solar panel. It's a real concern to have thrusting anywhere near a solar panel, because some of the residue from the thrusting can get stuck on the panels and it'll really degrade their efficiency. Yeah, that would be a bad day, but anyways, we're good now. So we have a drill here that's digging up some dirt. Not super efficient, but it's okay. We're storing it in here temporarily, and then this thing has the ability to convert it to the various types of fuel that we want. So I had used a little bit of monorepellent. I filled that up ahead of time just to make sure that everything was working and fine. You can also convert this into liquid oxygen and liquid fuel. So we're going to go ahead and start converting those, and you can see our fuel tank is filling up. Slowly but surely. And go ahead and take the thing full of fuel back. Even though we don't really need it, we need to acquire 950 units of fresh ore. And I think the only way we're going to do that is to convert it all to fuel. So, that's really what we got here. We're just going to have to fast forward. Sorry. Strobe warning. Let's see if I can reduce that a little bit. We're in orbit now. I decided to go ahead and do that for a couple of reasons, but basically I did just realize we were getting a little bit too much of a strobe type effect, and I wanted to make sure that we got here, and then I forgot to record while I was taking off. That's okay. So we got our fuel. We've used just a little bit of fuel to get up to here, but it's not really that big of a deal. We're not fully in orbit yet, but I wanted to explain a little bit more about In-Situ Resource Utilization. We'll go ahead and get into our return journey orbit. It's not the worst, but we'll go ahead and get into a full orbit, and then while we're waiting, I'll talk about it a little bit. So there are a number of different ways that we can use resources. Essentially, there's two things we want. We want rocket fuel, and we want oxidizer. Those are the two components that go into building rocket fuel. In the event of, say, a SpaceX Falcon 9 or many other types of rockets, the fuel is liquid kerosene, rocket grade, which is called RP1, and the oxidizer is liquid oxygen. For some other rockets, the fuel is liquid hydrogen. Okay, we're in orbit now. Good. Now we'll just continue on until the two line up much better. So anyways, like I was saying, you want liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen. There's different. Liquid hydrogen might not be the only type of fuel that's used. There might be others, or liquid kerosene. Liquid kerosene is kind of difficult to make. Liquid oxygen is not always the best rocket fuel. It's one of the most efficient rocket fuels there is, but it's a pain to work with, and you can't store it for long periods of time. There's a new rocket fuel that pretty much every rocket company that's in the field at all today is playing with, and that is methane. It's never been used for an orbital class rocket, but it has been tested a fair bit, and it shows a lot of promise. I'm just going to go ahead and switch to this so we can get into the right plane a little bit quicker. Okay, so rocket fuel, it all comes down. In-Situ Resource Utilization to make rocket fuel, which is one of the best things you can use it for, comes down to making those two things. The oxidizer is fairly easy. The two main targets you can talk about doing this are the Moon and Mars. On Mars, you can take the atmosphere, which is composed of carbon dioxide, and you can convert that into the oxidizer relatively easily. And then if you have a source of hydrogen, such as water, or possibly seed stock, if you bring the hydrogen doesn't weigh that much, then you can get into, sorry, let me check this. Okay. It'll do. So we're going to go ahead and switch back to this guy. Anyways, I was saying, if you have the liquid hydrogen somehow, or if you have the means to make hydrogen through water, then you can get whatever you need. That was not quite the best time. We're still not really that well lined up, but this is close enough. We'll burn right here. It's not super great, is it? Just in the right general direction. Okay. Let's just make sure. Problem. Oh, that's the best we will do. Okay. It was a great trajectory and it would have worked perfectly except for Minmus was in the way. So, on Mars, you take some liquid ice that you find somehow, and you use that to make the fuel, and you can take the atmosphere, you can use the two of those to make methane and oxygen, and you have rocket fuel. If you can do that, rocket fuel is one of the most expensive things to carry, one of the heaviest weights. It's the biggest weight by far. I'm going to go ahead and use RCS to speed this up a little bit. And once we get on target, I'll start thrusting, and that will keep us pointed in that direction. Pretty good. So in Kerbal Space Program, In-Situ Resource Utilization works by digging rocks and converting those rocks into fuel. That's more similar to how the moon would work. The moon has rocks that are rich in oxygen. So I don't know if you've read the book Artemis by Andy Weir, the same guy who did The Martian, then you know that the lunar soil in that book is used to convert into the oxygen that they breathe, and so oxygen is actually relatively easy to come by for the lunar base. It's a lot easier to come by there. Well, in Mars you can take it straight out of the atmosphere, you can get it from carbon dioxide. So oxygen is really not the biggest concern in a lot of ways. But good. This will work perfect. So all you have to do is find a way to get the fuel, and you're good to go. In Kerbal Space Program, you can create all of the different fuels. Monopropellant is especially difficult. There are a couple of different versions, but they're very complex chemicals. It would be very difficult to make that from any kind of just soil sample, but somehow the magic Kerbal Space Program, you're able to do that. It's relatively easy to make a couple of different types of rocket fuel, but not the monopropellant, and solid propellant would be just as difficult, if not more difficult, which you cannot make solid propellant at all here. So it's at least somewhat realistic. Anyways, that's a relatively new element to Kerbal Space Program, and it's one of the more realistic bits. And I think I will just call this episode here. I'm just going to go through re-entry, which I've done a bunch of times. The next time, I think we are going to go to Duna. We're going to try to take probably the same spacecraft all the way to, same design of spacecraft all the way to Duna, and hopefully we won't crash when we get there. Anyways, take care, let me know if you have any questions, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.